warning that we are recording. Melanie, can you see it recording? Because it doesn't show on my screen that, oh, there, I just got it. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us today. I have started recording. I'm going to go ahead and get the presentation going. I sent y'all a copy of it, and I like to send it to you with more advance warning, but things just got a little crazy the past few days, so I apologize for getting it to y'all only today. I would like to send it in the week prior to our meeting, so my fault. I apologize for that. But let's go ahead and get into our agenda. So we're gonna do a roll call. We can take that from your attendance at this meeting. We do have a quorum, so we have the ability to approve the minutes. We're gonna talk about the cameras. Last month, y'all asked us about a noise meter, so we have some information. And then we're going to go through our regular updates where we talk about the meters, the citations, and then if we have anyone for public comments, and finally our open forum, and then we'll adjourn. Oh, let me go to the next slide. So the first, we do have a quorum, so hopefully you all had a chance to review the meeting minutes, and if you don't have any changes or amendments to it, can I get a motion to approve the minutes from our September meeting?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, and I need a second, please. So David, can I put you down for a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay. Thank you. And all approving? Say aye.
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 Thank you. Motion passes. All right. All right, so the Flock camera update. I have been reaching out to both Flock and HPD. HPD is responsible for developing the map. Sergeant Dorton is the sergeant who spoke to us, I think it was last month's call, or maybe the month before, I can't remember, no, I'm sorry. I got an out of office from him. He is out until November 4th. So I suspect that's why we're not able to get an updated map. Originally, they said it would take 90 days to develop the map and get the cameras out. But with Sergeant Dorton being out, and I got his out of office like end of September. So he's out for essentially the whole month. I will keep, reaching out to Flock and reaching out to Sergeant Dorton or the other HPD contacts. And as soon as I get more information, I will email that to you all. Of course, we're not paying for anything until we see the work done and the cameras are installed. Mark did send out a link of a map that was created sometime back by the Flock representative. So I don't know if HPD actually put their eyes on it, because at the end of the day, HPD is the one who's going to approve the locations. You all should have that link, so that's a good starting point if you want to look at that. I'm happy to bring that link up on my shared screen if you all would like to see that. Let me see where it is. We haven't been able to get more of a quicker response, but being that Sergeant Burton is out of the office, I understand, and it's kind of a lengthy out of office, so I'm hoping that everything is okay. But if we get something by email, I will share that email with you all, and if we can get them to come to the next meeting and we have a map before then, that would be great too. With that, do y'all have any more questions on the Flock camera? The PO is issued. As soon as they get the work, we'll pay it, and that'll be $30,000 out of this year's budget, which I'll talk about a little bit later. Okay, so one of the items that y'all also asked us to look at was sound meters. We did talk about the noise ordinance at the last meeting and the new requirements for establishments to meet in regards to permitting and how HPD can enforce this. Now, this is not something that Park Houston enforces, but HPD recently purchased sound meters. They purchased 10 meters, so they were at a cost of about $533 each for each of those meters. And what I've got under that, and I can't even explain what each of these items are, but the acoustical calibrator is $229 per meter, and then there's a certification to ensure that they're meeting the noise measuring standards, which I can't explain that either. And then finally, there was shipping $20 for all 10 meters. So HPD spent about $5,300 on 10 meters. They did say that they would be able to use more, so we could add it to our list of potential projects for the advisory committee to talk about. I don't know. I know there was an article in the paper last week, I believe, or maybe this week, about how the city HPD has not been issuing any citations on the new noise ordinance. I know HPD, when an ordinance passes, they typically will not issue citations right away. They're going to take quite a bit of time to do education. We've done this on other issues with them as well. So I'm not sure what their timeline is, but they usually take a good 30 days to educate and inform, and they try and reach out to everyone, and then they will start enforcing. They did express a need for additional sound meters though. So did y'all have any questions? I think, Melanie, is this an actual picture of that specific one that they purchased, the spare scientific direct sound meter?
Yes.
Yeah, that's it. Okay.
Yeah, and my comments would be, I know HPD sat down, particularly along Washington Avenue with a majority of the ownership group of these bars, letting them know what the changes to the ordinance meant to them, and what the requirement was from a permit perspective going forward. Most of these guys along Washington Avenue already have a loud noise permit, so that loud noise permit that they already had was just converted to the new noise permit.
Yeah.
And Mario, to your point, I think it was there was going to be an educational period there for a while. But at the same point in time, I was also told that they told these guys that, there's no more, if I have to come out and, if you're in violation, there's no more warnings. Now, how that gets translated from the command staff down to the guys in the field, that's always a subject of interpretation.
Yep.
How does each, individual desk sergeant handle that, the night sergeant versus, the evening sergeant? So,
yeah.
But I think the numbers bear itself out in that I think they said there were 250 calls for service. They responded to, a number of calls and found there was true sound, and there was only like 4 citations issued. So that's a problem, and that should be a problem that Abby and Sally and ARA looks at, and I mean that's kind of their issue.
Right. Yeah. There's not much there that's in our control. All we can do is perhaps, add to the sound meter inventory to help, ensure enforcement.
Yeah, I would just want to make sure that, those meters are being used, within Central Command, and they're not being sent out to other areas of the city.
Yeah, no, that would be, a condition for it.
Not quite sure how you control that, but.
I mean, it's something, council districts they have funding and they say we want this used in our district and they apply it to HPD or fire. So we'd have to just look at what those restraints are and what those constraints are and how they manage that. At the end of the day, if they've just ordered 10 and we order 5 more, those 10 can be sent out. The old 10 can be sent out to other areas and the 5 can be used in Washington. Correct. So we just need to talk it out and figure out the best way. But HPD is used to having to do things like that with the council district funds. So they must already have a process on how to do that.
And it's not something I'm opposed to. I mean, it's $5,000, 10 meters. Seems like a decent. I mean, listen, they started this whole process a year and a half ago, right? With a loud noise unit and 1 sound meter. So anything that we can do to increase the availability of, monitoring and or evidence that's admissible in court, that, obviously benefits them.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, if y'all don't have any more questions or comments on sound meters, this is kind of where we end on potential projects. I feel like I'm kind of at a dead end on projects, and I don't know if we want to have like a separate kind of brainstorming on what projects we could pursue. We've talked about crosswalks that are not at an intersection. I know the traffic engineer has a lot of hesitancy about that. I'm happy to go back to them and ask again. And what else have we talked about? The lighting around the sign. So I think we were going to look at getting something just to kind of pilot it. So that we could put some LED strips on the RPP signage and perhaps even the metered parking signage. We have not procured anything yet. We're still looking into that, but those are the other projects, the kind of we've discussed in the past. But we do want to start thinking about where we want to go next. So I'm happy if y'all want to have a conversation offline, or if you want to shoot me an email, have me look into some stuff, or you saw something in another city, you think it looks good, it might work on the Washington corridor. That's a good way to get get our project list kind of going again. And I'm happy to research, whatever you think you might be interested in.
Okay. I mean, I think the reality is,
Yeah.
We've got what, $190,000 in the bank or something like that.
Yep.
And we're in a situation, I think the numbers were $20,000 a month in September.
Yep.
So you're $240,000 a year minus your overhead and split that 60-40. I mean, you're talking $80,000 to $95,000 a year.
Yep.
That what I don't want to find ourselves in a situation of is, Mike Knox sitting around the horseshoe saying, look at the Parking Avenue Benefits District. They're generating all this money, but they're not putting it back into the public realm.
Right.
Because that's cause for them to come back in here and go, what are you guys doing? And let's
Yeah.
shut it down and we'll take all the money. So, I think from a business perspective, we all come from the environment of we want to generate money and keep money in our pocket, but that we have a little bit of a different mandate here, and that we have to actually spend the money.
Yeah, we do have to spend it. One thing that I haven't done in a while is talk to the TERS. There's a TERS. It doesn't cover all of Washington. I think it ends maybe at Studemont, or it's somewhere on the east.
Studemont or the Heights, I think. And then there's one that goes the Uptown TERS, I think, captures the parking, the park, and then I think it goes to the roundabout, the traffic circle, and I think that's where it ends.
Okay. Oh, that was another project. I don't know where the city is on the roundabout, but I know there's always talk about redoing the Westcott roundabout. I know you have the lighting structure at the Westcott. Is that still up? I drive by it every day. I can't remember if it's still.
It is still up, but it's not hooked up. And I mean, my understanding was that was privately funded.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that could certainly be something that we could take over the maintenance of. I have been told by District C that after the Houston Open tournament is over, they're going to begin a 150-day construction project on the roundabout to improve the pavement surface, as well as improve safety at that traffic circle. I think they're putting in some raised crosswalks. They're doing some stuff with not signaling, but signage.
Yeah.
So they told me that's a mid to late November start, and they're pretty firm on that. So
yeah, I knew something was coming up. I just didn't know the details behind it.
Yeah, but I don't. My wife knows more details than I do, but I mean, like I said, it's improving the paving surface. There's drainage, that's additional drainage that's going to be put in. I think there's improvements to the sidewalks. So to the extent that we are making improvements to that roundabout, I mean, it certainly could be something that we could look into. Can we get, the existing light structures that are there back operational? I don't even know what it would take to make that happen. I know we've also lost some park benches. We've lost some trash cans to people that have, driven over the curb and into them. So there is certainly something that we could consider right there. I mean, it's kind of the end of our jurisdiction, if you will.
Yeah. Let me look into that, and I'll try and put together a list of things. We could talk to the TERS too. Existing projects can be funded with PBD funds. So maybe, if we want to accelerate a project, make it go faster, we'll, chip in some money to the TERS or chip in money to a city project in the area. So I do need to get that information and share it with you. So I'll try and get that for our next meeting, and hopefully get it to y'all in advance so that we could have a better discussion about it. Take a note.
Yeah, I mean, and if it's something that we want to look at, obviously we'd need to have somebody go out there and produce an estimate for us of, what it would take right to get us
and
where.
I think that was given back to the city. I think the WOW roundabout was a nonprofit And it was given to the city. It might be with the Parks Department. Let me do some digging on that. I remember something was done a couple years ago with the Economic Development Office. I just don't remember the exact status of it, so I just need to find out.
Okay.
So I'll check into all these things and bring it back to y'all at the next meeting.
That was like Phyllis Thomason, and I think Tom Dornbush, I believe.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. All right. Excellent. Okay. So we do have new rates in the parking benefit district. So the new flat rate is $15 after 6 p.m. and the hourly rate after 3 p.m. is now $3 per hour instead of $2 per hour. All the rates before 6 p.m. still are the same, which is $1 per hour, and I think the daily rate is $10 an hour. There's just not as much demand. It doesn't make sense to raise it during the day, but definitely at night we see a lot of demand out there, and we surveyed what the private lots were charging, and when they had to sign up, it was minimum of $25, which as a public entity, we really can't go and match the private sector, but we can at least be somewhat competitive. So we bumped it up from 10 to 15, and this went into effect September 21st. Okay.
So we haven't really seen the benefit of that increase in our numbers.
I'm guessing, you know, what I don't know right now is how many people pay the flat rate versus paying the hourly rate, because we still have kind of the same average that we had. Well, it's only been like, yeah, we're only looking at September numbers now.
Well, you only got 9 days of data and 30 days of numbers.
Yeah,
So
I was thinking we're in November already. I don't know what's wrong with me today.
Right.
So yeah, we just don't have enough information. September was about 20,000, but that's 9 days of that. So what we need to see is how many people are paying the flat rate and how many people are paying the hourly rate before we had the change and once we have the change. I suspect some people are going to stop paying the flat rate and just switch to hourly, trying to see, especially if they get out there later. Where before
is that information that you can pull out of the meters?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What people pay hourly versus flat rate? Okay.
We can look at that. It's not something we ever looked at before, but now with the rate change, it's something that we'll want to take a look at. So we'll come back with that information next month when we have at least a month's worth of data. And I'm just taking note for myself. Sorry. I don't know why I'm jumping 1 month ahead. There's not enough hours in the day, and I'm already jumping into November. Okay. So September meter revenue was about 20,000. We had 4,200 transactions, and we issued about 254 citations. So we did much better than we did in August. I don't know what to attribute that to. Maybe Astros. I do see a lot of people going out there on Astros game days, and we did see a bump in downtown with the Astros as well. So that's a possibility. On our citations, so for this fiscal year, we're averaging about 259 citations per month. The previous slide showed you we did 254. It's a little bit lower than what we did in August, but we're, maintaining that average pretty well. And then for tows for July through September, the third quarter, we had 341 tows from the Washington corridor, which is, pretty high compared to what we did in 2021. But I think our financials in 2021 as compared to now, we probably had fewer transactions in 2021. So that's why there were fewer tows, is my guess. I've not taken a deep dive into the tows. The tows is more of a quality of life. We don't look at it as it's the zero revenue source for the city. So we don't really track it besides, how many are we doing?
So the city doesn't make any money off that tow?
So, well, if a vehicle is not taken out of storage and the tow operator has to sell the vehicle, like you have 90 days to get your car out of a tow. I believe it's 90 days. After that, they have the ability to auction your car And the first thing that gets taken out of that are the storage fees and the tow fees. If there is anything left over after that, then Houston Police Department auto dealers gets a cut. And I don't even know what that cut is. We do not get anything from towed vehicles. So we spend a lot of time towing, and it's significant. It takes us a good amount of time to tow a vehicle versus going down a block and writing a site if there's 10 cars parked there and you have to tow 5, our officer could spend a good deal of time on that block versus if they just wrote citations and left. Writing citations is a matter of minutes. Waiting for a tow operator, completing all the tow paperwork, and then we still have the citation, but we do not get a portion of any of that if the car is sold. It just goes to HPD. Okay, so here are your financials I've highlighted. Now we've got the model last month. We had problems with the model. We weren't able to extend it out beyond 10 years, but we've spent some more time on it. So we have 2023 in it. And we are projecting about $183 for meter revenue. That's prior to any expenses, prior to the shares, 60/40. September was our 5th highest month in transactions since the start of the PBD. That's going back to 2013. Like I said before, our expired meter citation is still going at about a 6-month average. And according to the model, our occupancy after 6 p.m. was at about 43% for the month on average, which is a little bit higher than what we saw last month, just 1.5 points higher. At the end of the day, we did remove, I think you can see the green cell here where there's a 0 value. Congratulations, the meters are paid off. Washington PBD is debt-free now. So that was a problem that I had on the model last month. So that brings us down to once expenses. So expenses are minimal in the area. So we expect to see about 82,000 going to the district by the end of the fiscal year, if things remain as they are. And if the Astros go to the World Series, I expect that it might go a little bit higher. We usually see that net effect in downtown. I do know that I do see a lot of people going out for games to the sports bars in the area in Washington, so I would expect to see the same activity there. Do y'all have any?
But
yep.
those projections are run off of or projected off of historical rates, and we've just raised the hourly rate considerably, and we've just raised the flat rate 50%. So there's an argument here that says those numbers are significantly understated, right? Because we just raised the flat rate from 10 to 15 bucks. Mm-hmm. Right, so that's 50% higher, and then the other rate went from $2 to $3. I can't remember what it was.
Right.
So,
3.
Given that we're looking at historical numbers to project the future,
it could be. Yeah.
And I'm okay with it being understated. I'm just saying there's an argument that says, that number is $20,000 to $30,000 understated on a top line number, net meter revenue.
Yeah. That could be. I need to double check. I have another model that I use. This one is this was just developed for Washington. I will try running the numbers in my other model with the new rates and see and bring that back to y'all next time. But this is probably understated. One thing that we do conservative projections. Yeah. Just.
So can you go back and take a look at that slide where you showed us how many transactions were there? There
was 4,200 in September. It's on par with.
So you're averaging about 4,200 transactions a month, it looks like.
Yeah, approximately. Mm-hmm.
So if you take 42 transactions a month, 4,200, our average transaction bumped up a little bit, more so than it ever has, probably because of the additional rates, and said you had 4,200 transactions times 12 times $4.70. That's $236,000.
And we are saying 182, I
Right.
think.
182 or 86, yeah.
183. Yep. Good
So,
catch.
so we might even have more money that we have to go figure out a way to spend.
That's better. Then we could do bigger projects.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, good. Well, I will take another look at our projections. Okay. Okay, so for the budget, you see the same, oh, sorry, I should have clicked. This is the same projected revenue that was on the last slide that I just showed you. So this would be updated for the next meeting, depending on what we see. At the end of the year, we're still expecting 286,000. 30,000 is this flock camera. We have 25 and 15 that we've kind of put for miscellaneous projects. That's what we want to talk about, maybe having some project in the spring. So if we could talk about it next month's meeting in December and kind of have a vote on something that we can move forward on before the end of the fiscal year and kind of limit our budget to, that 40,000 area. With that, we've got some FY24 projections in here as well, but we need to look at the rates again on that. With that, do y'all have any questions on this page? All right. Melanie, did we have any public speakers? There are no public comments. So now we have an open forum, and I'm happy to cede the floor to anybody who would like to make any comments or ask any questions.
I got a couple comments.
Okay.
Or ideas to kick around.
Mm-hmm.
The benefit district extends 1 block north and south of Washington Avenue. Is there any thought about extending that benefit district further into these neighborhoods so that the neighborhoods get the benefit and the relief that the benefit district was originally intended to provide for those streets just 1 block and north and south of Washington Avenue? Is that something that we would consider? I mean, obviously that's something that would have to go before city council because it is a change to the charter or the ordinance per se.
Right.
But there's an argument that can be made that based upon the tolls, based upon the meter revenue, based upon the citations, all of which are up, that it's having the intended effect, and that we should consider expanding that to provide some additional relief within these neighborhoods around these commercial establishments.
Yeah. So the way the ordinance is written, the relief that was provided to the residents is because, particularly north of Washington, like Center Street and those areas, a lot of streets did not, were not eligible for residential parking permits because their house may not be classified as a single family house in HCAD. They may be classified as some other type of facility that would disqualify them from applying for residential parking permits. So when we wrote the ordinance, what we did is we said, if the street, the residential street, or the folks who want residential permit parking live within 1,000 feet of the Washington Parking Benefit District, the city will not take into consideration the criteria that at least 75% of the block must be single family residential. So we can do RPP outside the boundaries of, outside of Center and Lillian. So the streets that are beyond that, as long as they're within 1,000 feet of our boundaries, they are eligible to apply for RPP and not have to meet that criteria of the single family 75%, which was what we were having a problem with. South of Washington, it's pretty much single family residential in the area with a few exceptions here or there. The challenge that we're having is that nobody wants to apply for RPP. And even residents who have come to us, particularly north of Washington, we'll have one resident on a street who really wants RPP, really wants it, but they can't get their neighbors to support it. They said, we're fine with it. We don't mind it. And RPP is not a process that the city can go in and implement. It must be brought forward to the city by residents. They must petition and say, we want this restriction and we will pay for permits. Now, if you want to expand the boundaries, the reason to expand the boundaries would be because we want to add meters. So if we want to talk about putting meters in residential areas, then we would want to expand the boundaries. I think the areas that are suffering or being impacted from the parking challenges, the RPP solution is still available for them. They don't have to meet that criteria whether or not they're in our actual boundaries. They only have to be within 1,000 feet of the boundaries. Then the boundaries can stay as is. Now, I know eventually at some point, Washington past Westcott, no one's really parking there right now, but eventually there's going to be a need to manage that parking.
Yes.
Over there. Right now, it's fine, but I anticipate at some point in the future that we're going to have to expand it to include that portion of Washington.
Correct.
Now, when you talk about expanding the boundaries, are you thinking about putting meters, or are you thinking about spending the public money in the neighborhoods?
What I'm coming at this from the perspective of enforcement.
Yeah.
So Park Houston can enforce parking restrictions inside that boundary. Mm-hmm. However, outside of that boundary, let's back up. Within that boundary, there's RPP parking that was established.
Yep.
Outside of that boundary, there is RPP parking that has been established by individual blocks, or when you originally came through 10 years ago with a redesign of the parking plan of the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. So the thought process is, can we expand the boundary, which therefore expands Park Houston's ability to enforce the parking restriction that has been determined to be put on that block? Because right now, if I come south of Lillian, south of Washington past Lillian, I might have RPP parking on a street, but Park Houston isn't capable or isn't able to enforce that because it's outside of the parking district. So that then rolls over to HPD, or in the instance of, Rice Military, I can take the constable and enforce that parking restriction. So I'm thinking about it from the perspective of enforcement. Of course, that creates a problem for you in terms of resources, but that's the way I'm looking at this. So, and I hear what you're saying, because that is a real issue too, in that some people don't want to give up the freedom of that space and have that controlled by somebody else.
Yeah.
Or enforced by somebody else. So it's a double-edged sword, right? They complain when there's too many people parking on the street. They complain when they can't get, enforcement of the parking restrictions, but they don't want to go through the process of actually putting something out there that can be enforced. So it's kind of like, what do you do?
So our officers have the ability to enforce outside the district. We don't need to expand the boundaries. If there are areas.
Well, that's not happening, because I'm getting feedback from people that they're basically being told that's not inside the parking benefit district, so therefore I won't ticket or tow.
Okay, so I need to know which areas these are so I can clarify with my team, because I know when they're out there, they're writing like block sidewalk tickets in the neighborhood, whether or not it's in the boundaries. We are, authorized to enforce on-street parking within the entire city of Houston,
okay,
whether or not it's a parking benefit district or not. If there are locations, now we do have resource challenges. Hiring it's really hard right now. Getting people on board is really challenging right now. So I do have a resource issue, but we should not be telling customers that we cannot write or tow tickets. Now, here's where some things could happen is I could be on one street that has 10 cars that are all illegally parked, and then 2 blocks down, there could be a RPP with 2 illegally parked vehicles, but 8 open spaces. I would probably focus all my time on the street that has 10 cars so that I could get some relief there, knowing that the other street, yeah, I might not be able to get to those other 2 guys, but there's 8 spaces over there. So sometimes our officers have to make that decision. But I do need to know the locations that you're talking about and understand how we communicated, because that sounds like some miscommunication that I need to clear up in with my team.
Right, and what I would say is, as a general rule, it would be north of Washington, up in the Westwood Grove area. Now, I know some of the parking up there is haphazard at best. There is some RPP. There's some just no parking. There's no parking with banded tow. So, you know, each one of those signs gives you and or law enforcement the ability to do certain things.
Right.
But I am being told by residents up there in Westwood Grove that they have been told that, particularly in areas where there is a banded tow and it's outside of the parking benefit district, that they won't enforce those parking restrictions. So basically, north of Center on a north-south street, say whether it's Studer, Moy, I can't think of some other streets up there, but
I think Roy has some, Net has RPP.
Yeah, I'm not, and I don't spend a lot of time up there, so I'm not. I mean, I can go up there and look and get your information.
Okay.
But I know particularly for people like along Studer, because they've actually gone and then actually got a contract with Fast Tow because they towed a car one time. They got hauled into court. He had to pay the tow because it was, while it was an illegally parked car, it was not appropriately marked as towing enforcement, and so he ended up paying tow, although the car was illegally parked. And then he went and got the appropriate signage and a contract with Fast Tow, and now he tows cars legally outside of the parking benefit district. And that's on Studer, north of Center.
Yeah, I know we've had a challenge on Allen Street, like next to the trains. Those no parking signs are not city no parking signs. So if someone's asking to tow vehicles from there, that is unenforceable. That's railroad.
Well, the problem with that is north on the north side of Allen, that's Union Pacific Railroad property. So you have no jurisdiction on that property at all.
Right. So I think the traffic engineer looked at it. So we've had some challenges over there. But I'll talk to my team and try and figure out how we can communicate it better, because it sounds like there's some areas where we just can't tow. Because I know Union Pacific has put up no parking towaway signs, but we don't have the authority to tow from there because it's not our property. And then everyone expects us to. So it could be locations like that. It is. I don't think
it's as far back as Allen. I think it's really just kind of right off Center Street. Okay. Maybe, a north-south street, and maybe whatever's past Center. I can't think of what the next street is up there.
Yeah, Net. I know we have RPP on Net. Some other areas. Okay, we'll take a look at it, and I'll talk to the team, and we'll just clarify. And if you get any more information about what we've discussed, then please just shoot me an email.
Yeah, well, that's good information to know, because I was under the impression that that your team was only allowed to enforce the towing restrictions inside the parking benefit district.
No, okay. we can enforce all parking. So
good information.
Yeah, no, I'm glad to clear that up. Okay, does anyone have any other comments or feedback? Oh, this says our next meeting is, I missed that, October 18th at 12 p.m. Our next meeting will be in November. I'll send you an email. I don't know the exact date, but I believe we're the third Tuesday of the month. It should be on your calendar. If you don't have a calendar hold, shoot me an email and we'll forward it out to you. We'll be getting the minutes to y'all, and as soon as we get an update from HPD on the flock cameras, I will send that out to you as well. If there are no further questions or comments, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Sharon. And all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Let's all collectively figure out a way to spend some of this money. So let's come up with some
Yeah,
ideas.
I'm a really good shopper too, so.
All right. Thanks for everybody's time.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Have a wonderful weekend.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.